Unilever thrives to create every day a better and sustainable future with an intense sense of social purpose. My guest, Asad Rehman, Director of Media and Digital Transformation, will add some insights on how Unilever does it. Asad, thank you for being with us in our show Tawasal. I would like to know more about Unilever and about yourself, all the way to reaching the role of Director of Media and Digital Transformation. What does digital transformation mean?
Thank you for having me. Well, Unilever is a fascinating company. We're one of the largest fast-moving consumer goods companies in the world. We're the second largest advertiser in the world. We have a history in the Middle East. We've been here for a long time. One of the few things that fascinates me personally about Unilever is Unilever's commitment to sustainability and how we've changed the conversation on social responsibility to how being ethical in sourcing of the product to caring about the planet has become part of how we do business as opposed to just sending out few messages to consumers. And we work with brands like Dove, Sunsilk, Lipton, Wall's Ice Cream, Magnum. So, I mean, if you look at how our company operates, we love calling it the biggest social network in the world, if there is such a term, because there's an estimate that one of the Unilever products roughly touches 3 billion consumers every day. A little bit about digital transformation, because we didn't talk about it. So a lot of the people think that digital transformation is about how you talk to consumers on social media, how do you embrace the mobile revolution. For us, digital transformation is really about getting your organization ready for the new age. I mean, we're living in an age where a consumer can do pretty much everything on their mobile phones. They don't need to get up from the couch to be able to buy watermelons, for instance, right? And not many companies are ready for that kind of change. So I think the holistic piece of digital transformation is all about making sure that you have the right technologies in place at the right parts of your organization, addressing the right problems for you to be able to tackle the challenges you're facing in the external world, which is increasingly very digital and very technologically heavy.
Please, could you let us know about yourself?
I started my career with WPP, Group M and Mindshare, which is a media agency. This was back in 1996 when I used to work for J. Walter Thompson, and I was a planner, an account planner on Lipton in Pakistan. And then, that journey took me to Vietnam, it took me to London, and came a point where I got a call from Unilever one day asking me if I wanted to join the company. This was back in 2007, so 11 years ago. I joined Unilever where the need of the time was start to turn the entire piece of media and digital communication into the digital field. It was very interesting because not many people were doing it at that time, and there were very few people who had played in that area. So it was a privileged position for me to be called in to do something like that for one of the leading categories Unilever had. So I worked on brands like Axe, I worked on brands like Knorr, and those were really amazing days because this is when brands were really learning to do YouTube, for instance. They didn't know what Facebook was all about. And then it came a point around 2013 when I wanted to get really close to execution. So I put my hand up for a market role. Dubai came up for a Middle East, North Africa opportunity, and I was thinking twice about it. But then my boss at that point in time, and a fascinating gentleman called Luis de Como, he still runs the global media function for Unilever. He asked me very openly, he said, hey, look, here's an air ticket, here's a hotel stay, go see Dubai, go see our offices there, go see our leads of the business, and then come back and see how you feel. GCC specifically was at that point in time was on record the highest penetration of smartphones in the world. It was growing at a tremendous pace. The internet penetration was through the roof, and we knew that the traditional models of brand communication and marketing were nothing but going to be shattered. So knowing the challenges and exciting challenges that lay ahead, I thought it was going to be a fantastic place, and I haven't regretted a single second of being in Dubai.
What makes Unilever believe in big ad campaigns? What makes it the first or second spender?
The real belief in advertising comes from the fact that advertising is not an expense, it's an investment, and that investment has to have a certain amount of return. And if you take a pure ROI approach, I mean, everybody knows that advertising has a short-term impact and it has a long-term impact. Short-term impact is always on your sales and seeing how well your sales respond within a quarter or a year. And then there is a long-term impact of making sure that brands like Lipton or brands like Dove become household names and they become synonyms with the categories they operate in. And for us, really knowing that science really well is very, very important.
Unilever is maintaining somehow the ad expenditure in this year compared to previous year. How is this happening despite the difficult economy?
We believe that when the times are tough, when some of the other players in the market may be cutting back on at least the long-term investment aspect in the market, we believe that is a very opportune moment to go and actually invest in building relationships with consumers. And I think we show the return of that clearly in how our business performs as well.
We're seeing a huge chunk of your ad expenditures going to TV. How does TV serve Unilever?
Firstly, I want to correct that you're seeing our spends go to TV because TV is measurable. And there is a large chunk of our money that goes into channels that can't be measured, right? So outdoor, there is no effective measurement. Although we spend very little in outdoor, there isn't an effective measurement for radio. And there's a large chunk of our money that goes into digital channels where there's no measurement in place. We work with TV essentially in a lot of ways. It completely depends on what the job to be done for a brand is. As you know, we have really large-scale brands like Lipton, Lux, Dove, who are, in some cases have 60 to 65% market share in the categories they operate. So for us, it's very important to build large-scale reach and continuity of presence of our brands in the minds of the consumers. And TV plays a crucial role from that perspective in how we reach audiences, in how we sort of continue to remind them that we exist. I think TV provides a fascinating way of telling stories to consumers.
I'm happy to hear that TV is still doing a great role. The prestige of TV is a bit shrinking these days, so I'm happy to hear that. How do you perceive the proportions of online versus offline expenditures in the coming year for Unilever and in the whole media industry?
So my estimate says that the industry is spending somewhere around 25 to 30% of the money in digital platforms. And the reason this is going to continue is because advertisers spend money where consumers are. And if you look at for your own media habits, for instance, I think gone are the days when families used to sit around a living lounge and turn the TV on for an 8 p.m. TV series. So I think the habits of the consumers will determine where the advertising dollars are going to go. While some of us, like Unilever or some of the other respectful competition, might be ahead of the market in how they're addressing this challenge, we're far behind consumers and we're still playing a catch-up game with them.
We'll have a short break, and after that we'll talk more about the ad campaigns. How do you effectively measure the ROI on ad expenditures and ad campaigns? Is it through an increase of sales? Is it through through more awareness of Unilever and its products? Is it tangibly changing the habits of the consumer? How do you measure that?
So it's all of them, essentially what you just said. The ultimate measure of success of a business is sales. We're not here to just build household names. Those household names should result into tangible sales for any company that operates in this space. We believe in measuring ROI at two levels. One is, I often like to call it the delivery of our messages, purely speaking from a media and advertising perspective, and saying how well are we delivering our message to consumers, and that This is where we look at measures like efficiency of cost. Are we reaching the proper number of people? Are we showing them our message the right number of times? So frequency, etc. And then when we measure what we call reception, how well are consumers receiving that message? Are we taking an action as a result of them seeing the message? Do we need to do anything else for them to be able to take the action that we want them to take? And that action determines what the ultimate measure of ROI is. In some cases, it could be responding to a promotion, going to Lulu's and getting a 1+1 offer. In some cases, it could be just making sure that a brand like Omo, for instance, becomes part of their monthly buying basket. And in some cases, it would be us making sure that Lipton becomes a lot more than just a tea brand on a shelf. It becomes part of the culture, it becomes part of the conversations, and it is perceived as something that is part of the consumer's lifestyle. I would also like to add that the whole world of digital has added some completely different dimensions to this ROI measurement. Digital throws out data at every step of the way. And what's interesting about digital is that you can measure your ROI or impact on ultimate sales at each step of the process because you're getting so much data. Given the fact that e-commerce is rising in the region dramatically fast, you've seen Amazon investments coming in, you've seen Noon spending so much money in promoting and building their platform. So, the ultimate measures of the sales from advertising could be very quickly measured when you're selling on e-commerce platforms.
I'm curious to know about a specific ad campaign and the success it incurred.
Omo comes to mind. It's a fond memory because I worked on the brand personally. When we were launching Omo in 2014, it was a very small brand in the market. We had a very different ambition. We wanted to make it one of the major players in the category. So we took a very product-oriented, functional route to establishing the Omo brand initially. And then we went on to establish our global brand platform, which is Dirt is Good in this market. We showed what is happening on the other side of the spectrum. So if kids are not going out and playing and getting dirty, what are they doing as a result? They're sitting in their homes, lying on the couch, playing with mobile phones, playing with iPads, playing with technology, leading a dormant sort of sedentary lifestyle, which is obviously not good for children. And I think everybody believes that now. We really had to create that dialogue with the consumers to be able to establish that platform. And it's become one of the leading detergents in the markets, in the way it operates, in brand communication perspective, child development, making sure that kids grow up to be, healthy, mentally healthy and alert and capable in this part of the world is something that we're very, very proud of and very passionately drive that in the market.
How did the media plan look like in terms of budget allocation? I'm curious to know.
The choice of the channel used to be a very numbers game, right? Tell me how much reach are you giving, what is the cost efficiency of that, and I will put an ad on that channel. But I think with the rise of the digital and also the nature of the broadcast and the kind of programs, from Arab Idol to international formats coming in, I think there's a dimension of channel choice, which is about what role a particular medium or channel going to play in what you have to say to the consumers. And when I talk about crafting that whole dialogue and story that I just described on Omo, we knew that we can't just go with a 30-second ad and show it on broadcast and believe that we've done our job. We needed social media to craft that communication and dialogue and conversation with consumers. We needed short-form storytelling that could go as pre-rolls on YouTube. We needed a heavy amount of presence from a reach perspective so that we could make our presence felt in a category, like I said, which was very competitive. And we needed to make sure that all of it comes across as a coherent thread from a brand perspective. So our channel choice consisted of heavy digital, but within digital, social media, within digital, online video platforms. We worked very heavily with Shahid and NBC and some of the other media platforms. And then equally YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, And then obviously the broadcast channels did their job of making sure that our presence is felt across the markets.
Can I ask you about the percentages somehow?
The role determines the channel split. I don't know if that percentage is of any significance. Campaigns like this, we could, depending on again the nature of the campaign, we could spend anywhere between 50 to 40% on digital. Because these are large brands, our TV stays common, but the use of other media determines how money is playing out on some of the other channels. But for us, it's a continuous equalizer, not a static factor.
What are the parameters in choosing the right media agency for Unilever?
There's lots of factors. I think cost efficiencies are one, ability to add value from a strategic perspective is other, understanding of our business, etc., etc. We also there's a global Unilever policy. We review these capabilities every 3 years. So it's a fast changing world. Both us and our partners need to sometimes challenge ourselves to see whether we're on the right track, future-proofing ourselves. And that's what we do as part of our media agency working and relationships.
What do you think of direct spends, outside a media agency?
The world is changing quite fast. We manage pretty much all our spends through our agency partners. It's because there's some expertise that are needed which we don't have, that in terms of how you deal with programmatic spends, how you deal with data, etc. I don't think it's a question of believing in direct spends versus agency spends. To me, it sounds more like a question of, do you want to have agencies or not? Where I think that's not the debate. I think it's a question of where that particular part of the work should exist. And at the moment, we believe it sits with the agencies.
What's the last award that you have received?
So we won, I think, 7 awards at the Effies for our brands, and I think particularly within that was an award for Lifebuoy's campaign for Ramadan. And it was a unique campaign in the sense that we actually believe that the world of marketing is changing because of the way we're able to personalize our messages to consumers, especially on digital channels, and the way data comes back to us and how we make use of that data. So the whole concept of data-driven marketing and how you use real-time insights to drive your creative messaging to consumers was a phenomenal experiment we did with Lifebuoy, and it won a gold at the Effies, and it was a very proud moment for us.
Last but not least, Asad, I want you to send a message to everybody who's working in media industry.
The biggest threat we as people in the marketing and advertising industry face today is the risk of us going obsolete very, very quickly. And we're not going to go obsolete because suddenly somebody changed the book on marketing and we didn't read it. We're going to go obsolete because consumers are changing so fast, because the technology is changing so fast that unless we keep up with it, we're not really going to be able to practice what we think we're practicing today. So the whole art of talking to consumers, the whole art of how we make our products, the whole art of how we build our brands is going through a dramatic recomposition. And keeping up our skill sets is very, very important. So if you at any point in time you think you're good at what you do, think again and just maybe go back to the drawing board and try and redraw your expertise for 5 years that are coming ahead of you. In fact, 5 years might be too much. Just think about what you need to do in 2019, and that might present enough challenges for you to start to learn new things.
Thank you, Asad, for this interview and for all the information you shared with us about Unilever. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
The larger the ad spend, the more the focus is on the consumer. Today we've seen how Unilever communicates uniquely with its consumers, and we're going to see in future episodes how other advertisers do it.